Hello everybody, I'm Angie from Genius School and I'm here with my colleague Karen Bonanno, and we're going to be talking to you today about play, project and purpose-based learning that supports all stages of development. I will just share my screen. Okay, so as I say, supporting all stages of development through play, project and purpose-based learning. So I'm Angie Stead, as I said, the co-founder and leader of Genius School, and I'm here with Karen Bonanno, who is one of our founding Genius educators and leaders in the Genius School team programs, including Young Entrepreneur Academy, Academic Edge and The Quest, and the list goes on. So welcome from both of us. What we're going to cover today is the 7-year cycle for the stages of development. So we'll look at particularly at the earlier stages of life and how that relates to learning. We'll look at different teaching and learning methodologies that align with the different cycles of learning and activities that support each of these stages of learning as well. So our goal today is that you go away with a really good understanding of the different stages and you can go and implement some of the strategies we've talked about. And then at the end of our sharings, we'll talk about Genius School and the opportunities we provide to people in our communities too. So a little bit about Genius School. We offer child-centered personalized learning pathways that ignite the natural genius, the unique talents and strengths in children. In doing so, we're creating self-aware lifelong learners. When our students know how amazing they are, they understand their strengths and their natural abilities, then they are going to have a lot more confidence and ability to reach their potential. So in doing that, we're empowering our future change makers and leaders. And we like to use the term we're either learning or we're earning, but we're learning, discerning and earning together as we follow the Genius School pathway and our lifelong learning journey. So we use the word genius a lot, so I think it's apt for me to share with you the meaning of the word genius. So the ancient Romans believed that your genius was your unique spirit or personality that resides within your body for the whole of your life. So the word genius is derived from two Latin terms, genius meaning as above, and ingenium, a related noun referring to the natural dispositions and talents that you're born with. And so if you think about it, we're blending the whole concept of the divine and the talented, which I think is a beautiful way of looking at education and learning. So let's have a look first at the stages of development. So the first stage of development is the first 7 years of life. This is the baby stage, the preschool stage of development. Yes, I know some children go to school at 4, 5 and 6, but really children don't need to go to school until they're 7 or older as far as their developmental stages are concerned. Children who start school later, and there's much research done on this, tend to do better academically than those who start school too early. So we talk about this preschool stage of being 0 to 7, and that is all about the physical and emotional development. And this is the spirit years. This is the why. We ask the question, why am I born? Why am I here on this earth? So the first 7 years are about actually nurturing the child and bringing out their uniqueness and supporting them holistically. And we'll go a bit more into that a bit later on. Then we have the 7 to 14 years. Now, this is the school child to adolescent, and this is the stage in our life where we are very creative, very imaginative and feeling as well. This is all about how we feel and how we relate to the world as individuals. And the question here is, if we look at these questions for the stages of development, I'll just go back. If you listen to a preschool child, you will hear them say constantly, but why? And it can drive you crazy because they're constantly asking the question why. Well, that's because that's the stage of life they're at, curiosity is definitely very strong for them at this stage. And they're like sponges, just soaking up all the information. So please try and be patient when they're constantly asking that same question, because that's what they're born to do, and that's how they learn best. And then when we get to the 7 to 14 years of age, they're more focused on what. Now, you will hear children of this age saying, I'm bored, what can I do next? Or they're saying, can we do this? Can we do that? Or they're very focused on task. They're very focused on wanting to do things and want to engage in lots of activities and experiences. And that's because this is the natural stage in their life for them to naturally be asking the question, what? And then we come to 14 to 21 years of age, which is puberty to young adulthood. And this is the conceptual / rational thinking phase. This is where we have a lot more maturity and we are able to form our own beliefs and to think rationally about lots of different things. The higher thinking brain is much more developed, and you can have some really great almost adult conversations with children or young people of this age. And the natural question, the natural energy for children of this age is who. And you will see that in their, wanting to form relationships, sometimes intimate relationships with other people, but also friendships are really, really important to them. And many parents struggle with this stage of development because their peers matter more to them than often their family. So it can be a very challenging stage in development when the peer group can have a lot more influence on the decisions that young people make at this stage in their life. And again, this is perfectly normal. I think for us, we talk more about how we navigate these stages and how we best support our students through the different stages of development. So naturally, we'll start with the 0 to 7, which is the physical phase. Now, the first 7 years, we talked about this as the why. This is the spirit stage in development where children, the most important thing for children to understand is to learn about themselves and the environment that they are born into. So this is a very physical stage of child development. It's all about how we support them to develop physically. There's lots of research out there, but for Genius School, our belief is that we allow children to develop at their own pace. Many parents worry about, will my child walk? Will my child be able to write and read and do all these different things at a certain time? That's more the one-size-fits-all model of education. For Genius School, we believe every child is born a learner, and it's our responsibility to provide the best environment on which they can learn. So allowing them lots of activities and experiences so they can develop both physically and socially is really, really important. Children of this stage are influenced by their immediate environment. There is a famous quote by Maria Montessori, which goes along the lines of, children literally incarnate the environment they're born into. So how children are treated in the first 7 years of their lives is how they will view the world when they grow up. So it's a really critically important stage. Children are driven by instincts at this stage, but that includes the instinct to learn. So this is why the key is to provide the right environment, and they will learn by themselves. And it's, like I say, the time where inner and mental structures are built. So they incarnate the experiences around them. So are we caring, responsive, empathetic? And if we are, our children will grow up to see the world as being a friendly place. Hey, Karen, can you see lots of scribbles on our slide?
Yeah, I think we've got someone who's drawing. So can we ask you please to remove the squiggles you've got?
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So inner and mental structures are built at this stage in life. So like I was saying, if we are nurturing and supportive, then our children will learn the world is a safe place to be. If we are harsh and punish and command and control, then we're going to create a fear-based mindset in our children. So children learn about behavioural responses and culture at this stage in life. So they learn what's appropriate and what's not. And that's by osmosis. It's by actually you modelling appropriate behaviour and them learning as they form relationships with other people. And of course, they learn motor movements, speech, relationships and languages. And children of this stage are hugely dependent on their parents or primary caregivers and extended family. So it takes a village to raise a child, and it's critically important that we have that supported network for our children to thrive. And this quote by Carl Jung, I love. It's the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct. And that's the reason we actually have a play-based curriculum for our preschool children. Playfulness is how children learn. It's how they develop the skills they need to be a successful human being. And again, I think Maria Montessori is famous for saying play is children's work. So we should never underestimate the value of play. So it's a natural instinct. We talked here about children are driven by their instinct. The play instinct is one of them. So we don't need to necessarily actively educate / teach, but we need to provide that nurturing environment and many opportunities for children to have lots of different experiences so that learning can happen. Okay. So, and in doing so, in providing that supportive environment, children, as they're learning, are developing positive learning dispositions that support them as lifelong learners and also in living a fulfilled life. And examples of that are playfulness, seeking, which is the same as curiosity, seeking information, seeking to learn, participation, being able to participate in experiences, with other people as well, persistence, and also caring. And that's to name a few. So they tend to be the primary dispositions, and there's many others that are linked to that as well. So learning through play, curiosity or seeking leads to knowledge, but playfulness leads to skills, because it's through play, which is active, where children are participating, that they develop the skills and dispositions. For example, children learning to take risks, they're learning about themselves, they're learning that they can make positive decisions for themselves, they learn that they can keep themselves safe. So simple things like children having the courage to take the risk in, climbing a tree or a piece of equipment, or taking a risk by putting themselves forwards to play with other children when they might be a little bit nervous. They're the best things we can offer our children, is those opportunities, because in doing so, we're building their confidence and they're learning more about themselves and developing the skills. So as Albert Einstein says, play is the highest form of research, and the most important thing we can learn is about ourselves. So when we look at play, it can be very tempting to think that we have to provide lots of toys or games for children to play with. Well, often that's not the case. Toys that do less teach more, and we can find many, many resources from our natural environment or everyday items that can really support children's learning. And, examples are, we've got an image here of children playing with natural resources. Now, these can be things you find in the local forest or bush or on the beach. But these resources stimulate brain development. They grow creativity and imagination. They grow the gross motor skills, the fine motor skills, which is really important for learning to write. It promotes early mathematical and conceptual learning, because they learn about position, size and shape. Does this fit? Will this stand up on its own? It stimulates multiple senses, so the whole sensory experience of touching, but also the sense of space and time and position, as well as auditory, etc. And it allows children to develop an understanding of the world, and at the same time as encouraging independence. Children can play independently, or they can choose to play with and alongside other children, and they have complete control and autonomy over the whole play experience, so they're not dependent on an adult or teacher telling them what to do and how to do it. So examples of this also include other open-ended resources. And when we say open-ended, we mean that they can be used in multiple ways for multiple reasons. They have no rules, no fixed expectation, no determined outcome, and no right or wrong answer. So there's no fear from the point of the child, because we're not going to be making them wrong or telling them they should do this a certain way. And they're free to just engage and learn about the resources, learn about the activity and the properties of the resources that they're playing with while they experiment. And you can see here, we've got artistry. We have, young engineers here learning about the properties of metals, making different shapes. This is design work. They're learning to write. They're learning about size, shape, and position. And the same here in a more gross motor way, learning how to construct. These are future architects and designers. So it looks like play, and it might look like, it's not, we're not testing and measuring, but this is where most learning happens, when children are free to explore and experiment with properties and materials and different objects. And this starts from, even babies. We have the idea of heuristic play baskets, which is essentially having open-ended natural resources. Sometimes these are called treasure baskets as well, where children can just be little scientists and explore the texture and the properties and the weight and how these different objects relate to each other, and how they can manipulate them, growing their gross motor and fine motor skills. So for babies, this is a really good activity, but also for older children as well. Can go from heuristic play / treasure basket to loose parts play. And they just get a lot more sophisticated in how they use these objects. And these can be everyday kitchen items as well, like pans and spoons and whisks, etc., etc. In fact, you can have the most sophisticated brand new toy, and I'm sure many of you who are parents have seen this, and children will often take them out of the box and play with the box, or they'll, discard the toy after just a small space of time and then go and raid your kitchen cupboards, because there's a lot more for them to explore. Children are naturally drawn to open-ended experiences. And then role play. Role play encourages creativity, imagination, and cognitive flexibility. It enriches languages and enhances communication and collaboration skills, and develops emotional skills like compassion and empathy. It's through role play that children can make sense of experiences that they've had, or, family life. You'll see them play mummies and daddies, or mummies and mummies, wherever that might be. But children need to be able to act out experiences in order to make sense of them. So for social and emotional development, this is really important. And again, you can have a towel tied in a knot, and that can be a baby doll. We don't have to go and spend lots of money on expensive resources to have this rich play experience. And social play, of all the skills we've listed, this is the most important, because children need to learn how to get on with other children. We are the most curious, playful, and social mammals, and we become educated through our sociality. And if you think about that, there are very few experiences in life that don't involve some kind of social interaction. And certainly all our relationships are formed around having successful social interactions with others. So lots of opportunity for free play, with other children is really, really important for this stage of development. And it's through the contrast of experiencing the interaction between myself, say, and another person. I learn more about myself from that interaction than I do about anything else, which is really, really important. So that covers our first 7 years for what we're covering on this particular webinar. So I would really like to hand over to Karen now, who is our expert in 7 years and older. Hello, Karen.
Hello, Angie. Good to be here.
Good to have you.
Yeah, so the 7 to 14 years, what happens at this stage is that they start to really explore how they fit within the world, because the world around them starts to enter into their particular experiences. So each day they'll be seeing things, hearing things, everything will be happening around them. But at this stage, they also have this sense of imagination. So they'll come up with all different ways to do things, and they'll be very creative. So it builds on what they experienced earlier, where there's this sense of curiosity, but now it's their imagination. Their individual personalities kind of begin to emerge here. And they also develop their specific emotions. So they start to understand for themselves how they express their own emotions to situations. They develop their standards and values. They get their personalities, their temperament, also their own habits, and they create their own memories at this stage. But for them, it's the question they explore here is the what question. So what's happening in the world? What part or role can I play in the world? And they play with the whole what if. That's where their imagination comes in, and also their feelings, where they're identifying their own particular personal state of being. But the fascinating part and the good part is that this is where they're capable of sharing their own ideas and expressing themselves. And we can see it through things like drama, poetry, art, sport. They become their own individual little being. And this is kind of a crucial stage where we get them starting to go into the next level, where they're entering puberty. So it's all different stages. But the big thing is, if we go to the next slide, it's what type of activities do we get them to involve in? We don't forget play. Play still flows through, because we want them to be exploring, we want them to be experimenting, we want them to be developing, again, their social skills, but this time it's more in sort of group collaboration environments. And John Dewey is an early proponent of the idea of project-based learning, which is the learning by doing. And this is where if we get kids involved in doing, then they will learn rather than just being told what to do, when to do it, and so forth by somebody else. So this is where it becomes very student-centered approach, where we're connecting with the things that they're interested in and the things that they might be passionate about, that they want to explore and investigate. And so all different ways that we can get them exploring the things around them, in particular, real world issues. And if you see the image on the right there, this was from a Genius camp that we did with Genius School, where we got the students to explore something that they considered was real world and happening around them and what they could do. So this is where we're bringing and internalising the real world into their lives, but helping them to understand that. And we get them to inquire about the world and using questions that will help them to explore that. And as you can see here, they've got quite creative, because we get them working as groups in the way that they put that together. But what they're doing is they're taking the new knowledge that they're learning and they're applying it to the tasks that they undertake at this time. And it's great to see the way that if we allow them the opportunity to do this, how they will actually really surprise us with the outcome of what they produce. So the next slide shows another activity that we had as well, where again, it's all project-based. And so you can see here, each person in the group took on a particular role of addressing a question they took the topic of climate change. So each of them addressed the question, and then they had the opportunity to share. But if we look at the next slide, we can start to think about, well, what do we know about the curriculum that's around us? So if everybody here who kind of looks at, well, what's the curriculum that we've got available to us through our schools, you will see that all of these can be connected to a project-based learning approach. So if we look at the science and natural studies, then that becomes a pathway for them to explore. So you might have someone who's curious about that. It's like what Angie was saying before about they'll start playing with things and they'll start to construct. So this continues on, but we get them connecting their new learning with their own experiences. So they can do science experiments and see what happens. They can study nature, go out and look at the world around them through that particular lens. Then there's also the history and culture where we're doing research, or we're looking at different creative presentations that they can do, or they can pursue real world impact projects. And again, the image I've included here is one of the projects that we do, or the programs we do, which is called The Quest. And we get the young people to actually really exercise their inquiry learning skills to dive deep into something that they might be interested in. So for Alex here, his passion and his hobby was beekeeping. And so he wanted to explore a bit further. How could he take his hobby and really understand how he could make it more sustainable, because he understood that the bee ecology was really important. So we have the chance to get them to connect to things like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we're helping them to understand the world around them and how the world works and how they can be a part of it. So this is really important for young people to engage in these project-based learning opportunities, particularly if they're interested in it, because they have more of an emotional engagement with the content. Whereas if we just do the standardised, everyone's going to do this project, then we don't give them the chance to develop their individuality, which is important for them in this 7 to 14 years. And the skills that they're developing are really quite extensive. We're continuing that curiosity, because that's going to stimulate their imagination. We're looking at them being creative, solving problems and thinking critically about things that are happening, continuing to develop the social skills through collaborative group activity, but they're also starting to develop higher order skills when it comes to digital literacy. How do I use the technology around me to not only find the information I need, but how do I use the digital technology to be able to have my voice heard and my message going out there, just as Alex did with his particular project. So that's the research and presentation elements that happened there. So Angie, any thoughts on that you want to add from our experience of working with this 7 to 14 year group?
I'm on mute, sorry. I just realised. No, other than when we trust our children to lead their own project and their own learning, then as Karen said, because they're engaged and they're motivated because they care about what they're doing, the learning is just like, they constantly surprise us, Karen, don't they, with the amazing solutions that they come up with. You know, our children are upgraded versions of ourselves. And so we can often limit their potential by trying to control too much what they're doing and how they should do it. But when we give them the freedom to really engage in a project like Karen was talking about, then they're going to way exceed the expectations of most of us, I say, yeah, from experience.
Yeah, so if we go to the 14 to 21, the very first point we've got there is puberty, and I guess we can say, need we say any more? Because this is really an interesting stage of going, through the adolescent to young adulthood. But for them, what happens now, they're going up to a higher level again, where it's about who am I? And they're developing new relationships with the world around them, but also with other individuals. And so they're making life their own and identifying their particular tribe. So it's all about identity as well. Who do I want to hang out with? Who do I need to be with? Even who am I interested in maybe connecting with as they go through their life? So for here, we've got them, they're going through puberty. So a lot of things happen here with their self-consciousness. things like becoming aware of their body image. And we know how this is really a crucial age where we need to be nurturing them. But often this is an age where they kind of maybe push us away a little bit because they're on their own personal search for truth. And it's important to think about the role models in their lives. Now, it may not necessarily be you as a parent. If you're a parent, it might be the coach of the sporting team, or it might be the teacher who they gravitate towards at school. So there are other people around them. With the earlier age groups, they tend to imitate superheroes, whereas this age group is all about looking at particular role models in their life, and they'll start to mirror their values. So we see a lot of things happening in regard to, say, the impact of social media and so-called influencers. So this is really a crucial time. But at this time, if we get them in the right learning environment, we start to develop their rational thinking capacity, and also helping them to develop the skills that they need, as that last point says, they transition from being in a family environment to more of an independence and maturity as well. So this is where we focus on the purpose-based learning. And again, it's still student-centred. We still need to have them connecting with something that they're invested in, that they're interested in, that has this individual meaning and relevance for them. And so for us, we take them through a process where we turn a project into a profitable project. So here you can see, this is Alex now, again, the same young person that we were working with before. Alex continued with us, and he took his beekeeping hobby that he had, and he started to think about how he could turn this into a business. And you see this wonderful statement at the bottom there, 3 kids honey. What he did, he ended up getting his siblings involved. So they as a family were connected in that his younger siblings joined him in developing this business. And so that was a whole process that they went through in our Young Entrepreneur Academy. And again, they are driving the learning because they're the one who is interested in this enough that they want to invest the time to learn and to actually have some future outcome for them. So they do have the higher order goals and thinking around what they're doing. And we have this whole development of their entrepreneurial spirit. So it's taking them through that whole phase. And also it helps them then to identify, well, what's my future career or future job option going to be? Because this is this age bracket where they're choosing their kind of career options, particularly when they're choosing their subjects within the school environment. So the activities, again, that we've got happening, we focus around things that are the real world. And there are different elements here that can be explored. There's the career aspects. So what happens, I think, in a traditional school setting is some of these things are neglected because people want to, or they feel that they have to follow a set curriculum. Whereas we can support them as parents or coaches or whoever you might be to help them to look at other avenues of thinking as well. So things like internships, which could be what people would refer to as work experience, that they go out and they experience the working environment and they start to see the way business operates. And so they develop some skills and understanding there. There's also the career focus projects where we get them to think about, well, what careers are out there for me that I could be interested in, and providing them with a chance to maybe meet other people or to go into environments where they're seeing different jobs being done. And then, of course, mentoring programs are great here as well. And that tends to be more in their sporting or their recreational activities. It might be that they're engaged in music or their ballet or gymnastics or something like that. So this is all part and parcel of what it is to develop their relationships with other people, because again, it's all about, who do I connect with? Then there's the service learning, which is all about tackling the real world problems. And this is where, with Alex, that's what he did. But then there's the other element too of all of this global engagement. We live in a very complex, interesting world where we have to help our young people understand what it is to be in a space and a world where there is going to be conflict and there is going to be turmoil. We have to think about getting them to understand how they engage with that world that's around them. And this is where like modern history components within education and that element of the curriculum can come into space. So if you want to go to the next one, because Angie, we can both talk about this because at different stages, the concept of ikigai, which is what is called your reason for being, we use this tool to help our young people, particularly in that 14 to 21 bracket, really start to map out and give themselves a bit of a scorecard about what's happening in their life today. So we get them thinking, well, what do you love? And are you engaging in certain things that you love doing? And we get them to give a score out of 10. What you're good at. And we have certain little tools that we use here, quizzes that we get them to think about, well, what am I good at? And then how much am I engaging in what I'm good at on a day-to-day basis? And then the United Nations Sustainable Goals we bring into what the world needs. And then the bottom one is about what can I be paid for? So this is helping them to develop their entrepreneurial mindset. So everybody who has interactivity with kids, you kind of got to think about how you can bring all of this together, because that little kind of sweet spot in the middle, where you see the word ikigai, if we can get kids in that space, then we'll have a higher level of engagement in their learning because we are connecting with them and the world that they want to explore.
That's so right, Karen, and even for us adults as well, it's a good thing to maybe look at this yourself and score your own ikigai, because many of us are forced into a particular role or job because of circumstances at that time, or we were led there because of the expectations of our parents or our teachers. But we like to focus on the individual. So, if we do what we love and what we're good at, and it links to what the world needs, then they will get paid for it because there's a demand there. So it's a good thing to be teaching our young people that this is really important from a very early stage. And Karen, on the Young Entrepreneur Academy and the Quest, you take them through this.
And we also get them, like some of them, particularly the younger ones who come through, they might not yet be at a point where they have that conceptual, rational thinking to work about what can I be paid for. So we get them to think about, well, what impact can I have on the world? And it might be linking their project into things that they could persuade people to do to change what they're doing so that we have a better environment, a better beach to walk on, or a better natural pathway that hasn't got rubbish and all that sort of thing. So we get them to think about that's still having an impact that may not be necessarily what they're going to get paid for, but it'll have an impact on the world around them. So every age bracket, to a certain extent, from that 7 through to 21, can engage in this level.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at it yourself, if you get 2 of these things, you can see these little segments here. If you are doing what you love and what you're good at, then you might feel good about what you're doing, but you will have a sense of, I'm not doing enough, because you've not yet turned it into something you can be paid for. So there's always going to be some kind of seeking until you link the 4 circles. So it's a fantastic tool for anybody.
Yeah, and the next slides are a little bit hard to see. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put into the chat the document link where this comes from. But here at this point, we've got a whole lot of different skills which are being developed, particularly this 14 to 21 years of age, because they're not only developing the cognitive, but they're developing a whole lot of other aspects as well. So their attitudes and values, and also their specific knowledge that they're going to carry forward into their future careers. And the next slide actually looks at how a project or a purpose-based activity. So in this case, if you look on the right-hand side, it says an environmental cleanup, for example, the school park. And then you'll see that there are certain elements here, the cognitive, they're engaging in problem solving because they've got to work out, well, what do we need to do to clean up this environment so that it is more pleasurable to be playing in the school park. And then there's the communication. How do I get my message across to the people who may be messing it up to make sure that I can get them to take some action? And then sort of the self-regulation here, the intrapersonal, is they're being conscious, they're being conscientious about what's happening, and they're taking the initiative. And then the social part here is the civic responsibility and about an environment. So each time they engage in different project or purpose-based activities, we are addressing a lot of the skill development that we see. Now, do you want to pick up this one, Angie? Because this is kind of bringing it into the different stages of development. And we've talked about the 0 to 21, but it continues to go on, doesn't it? Oh, just on mute there.
Thanks. It does for sure. This links back to 0 to 7, which was the physical. Remember, this was the early years, and you will hear, preschool children constantly asking the question, why? But why? But why do I have to do that? Why is that the case? So this is the spirit phase of life, and this is where children under 7 were essentially programming their subconscious mind through what they experience as they live in this world and through the relationships they have with other people. Then we move to the next 7 years, which is, as Karen covered off before, this is the what stage. This is imagination and feeling. Children of this stage, you've only got to watch them in play and you can see that they're very focused on what they're doing or what they want to do next. So, and they will always be, what can I do now? What can I have? It's constant, the what question. So it's really, if you hear the language, you're going to know the phase that they're in. Now, again, we come round again to 14 to 21. We talk about the teenagers and how this is more rational thinking, and it's the relationships that matter to them more than anything, the friendships they build. They become a lot more social. And of course, everything has its opposite as well. As they become a lot more social and self-aware, they become a lot more self-conscious as well, as Karen was sharing before. So we can support them by actually helping them see how amazing they are. We have the Teen Dynamics token, Karen, don't we? That's a tool to help grow their confidence and help them to see how unique and perfectly imperfect that they are. Because the more self-conscious we become, the more we compare ourselves to others. And with all the social pressures of, social media and the like, it can be a very, very challenging time. So the more we can help our young people see how amazing they are and focus on the strengths, the better they're going to do throughout this stage in life. And then we get then to 21 to 28. This is where very often we start to settle down a lot. This is the ego stage. We're very aware of who we are in this world, who we present to the outside world, what we look like, as in how we look to others, our levels of success compared to maybe the levels of success of other people, and really wanting to make our mark and have some more stability. So when we talk about the when and where stage, it's often a time when we settle down and come more into a more settled autumn energy, where we might have more long-term relationships rather than going out partying every night, for example. So you'll see a big shift in desire and behaviour when we get to the stage of 21 to 28 years of age. It's often when we start to, many of us will have families or be thinking about having children or having fur babies. We start to look for more meaning and more close relationships. So, and as we move from that stage in life, 28 to 35, this is more winter energy, more settling down, looking back at what we've achieved in life and building security. At this age, we tend to look at our stability. and making sure, finances at this stage in our life can rank quite highly. We start thinking about preparing for the future and making sure that we have a stable foundation on which we can thrive and grow our relationships and our families. So you can see how our priorities change through the different stages of life. The best we can do is go with the flow, understand the different stages and support the relationships, knowing that's where they're at, knowing too that this soon shall pass. We then move on to the next stage in life. Now, if we think about these seasons, we come in the first 7 years in spirit. That's the only time we're in spirit, because by the time we get to 7 to 14, our brain, our higher thinking brain, is much more developed, and we are on the human journey at this stage. So we are working more from our conscious thinking mind. So we go from 7 to 14 in what, 14 to 21 in who, 21 to 28 in when and where. Then we come to 28 to 35, which is the more how we're going to plan for our future, how we're going to make this work. But then we don't go to why again. We go straight across them from 36 to 42. We go back to what. So you will see that once we get 36 years of age to 42-ish, then we are now starting to think about, well, we're settled, we've got our family life, I've got my house, whatever it might mean to you. Then we start looking for more meaning. What can I do next? What can I do to make a difference? And what's important to me now in this stage of my life? We often, they talk about the midlife crisis at this stage, during this 7 year stage. And that is because we are reevaluating what's important to us and where we're going next. And then we start to cycle back around. So we cycle these we cycle these four energies. So useful exercise to think about where you are and where your children or the significant people in your life, what stage they're at, and just explore and look at, what's their priority right now. If we understand this, we know how we can best support that whole journey and relationship. And I love this quote. I think I can speak for Karen in saying the same, from John Dewey. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And that's always relevant. It always has been relevant, but particularly nowadays with the rise of AI and technology, I think the world is a very different place, and we need to really look at education and what we're doing for our children to prepare them for the future, a very uncertain future too. So just linking back to Genius School again. So for Genius School, we have whole child education and personalised learning. We use many of the tools we've mentioned during this webinar and more to help grow the self-awareness of our students, but also of our teachers as well. So do go and do our Genius Educator quiz or any other quizzes that we have available on Genius U, because the more we can raise our own self-awareness, then the more we are being strong role models for the students that we're working with. Our curriculum at Genius School is based on self-awareness, knowing who I am, self-expression, being able to express my own authentic self, my beliefs, my talents and my gifts, and self-mastery, which is a lifelong journey towards self-actualization, where we master our talents, and in expressing them to the world, then we're making a valuable contribution to society. Karen, do you have anything you'd like to add to what we've discussed before I go on and talk about?
Well, to a certain extent, this reflects the different stages that we've got young people going through. Like the early stages, it's all about self-awareness. And then in the next stage, it's about developing and mastering the skills and things like that. And then it goes through the self-expression. But at each stage, these will cycle through. Like a toddler will have a way to engage in self-expression with the particular skills that they have at this particular stage. So all of this applies to every group, and also as adults, we're the same. We're constantly cycling in a way. We want to think about spiraling up in the way that we're developing.
And the interesting thing is sometimes we can see adults expressing themselves like toddlers when they don't have that the I guess self-awareness and the ability to articulate. It's really important we learn this at an early age. I've seen toddler tantrums and adult tantrums alike over time. It's all a form of expression though. So when we look at educating for the future, so at Genius School, we offer both educator training and pathways with free tools. So I do encourage you to go and look at what free tools we have available that both ignite the genius in our children and young people, but also our educators. So we have youth consultant training, which is it's basically flow consultant training where we teach you how to use our tools to raise the self-awareness of teens and young people, where you learn how to profile and how to debrief teens, so they really get to understand their genius energies. They get to understand that what's special and unique about them, and to grow their self-confidence and belief in their own abilities. And also we teach you about the Genius School philosophy and methodology, and how to incorporate our tools into your business, your program, or your teaching to enhance what you're doing for yourself. So for this youth consultant program, we give you 25 Teen Dynamics profile tokens, so they're valued at $2,500, and we give you 10 Talent Dynamics profile tokens, which is valued at just under $1,000. So that means you can go and you can earn money by profiling and debriefing teens and their families. And like I say, we teach you how to do that in order to accelerate their learning and their belief in their own abilities. So in doing that, you can actually earn money straight away, and you can also have your products, your own circle, so to speak, your business on the Genius U platform, and you can have your programs up there as well, totally for free. This includes a 12-month license, which means that you can access the platform to sell your products for a whole year, and you get all of that for just $1,200, and that's a full year's license with all the tokens and with the ability to put your programs on Genius U. So it does include a virtual training module, which will take it's online, it's virtual, it's self-paced, but also you'd be part of the Genius School educator community and have access to lots of different programs and content that we create as a community ourselves. Things like this, which yes are free publicly, but we have educator specific training as well. So if you are interested, there's a QR code here. Please do just go and book a call. If you want to know more about it, you're not sure it's for you, then book a call anyway, where Karen and I are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Our goal is to ignite the genius in every child, and we'll do that by growing our community of certified educators. So it would be great having you join us. And like I say, no such thing as a silly question. Just book a call and we're happy to discuss any opportunities with you. So on that, I would like to thank you for joining us. It's really great to have you here. And I'll come across to Karen for a final comment. And a thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Angie. It's a case of we've got a few moments before we need to close off. Whether anyone has any questions, you can either key it into the chat or you can unmute and ask us. Because it's really important for us to, regardless of whatever our role is in interacting with young people from the 0 through to 21, we need to kind of have some tools and toolkits to be able to support them and help them at various stages. Now, Angie comes from early childhood background. I come from the secondary high school background, but have had experience working with the primary age kids as well. And I find that the more that I can add to my toolkit, the better that I am in interacting and engaging with these young people, because really ultimately they're going to be our future leaders. So I think investing time in helping them to develop the skills and capacity that they need to, make really great decisions for themselves and also ultimately for others is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from my experience, the future is in good hands if the participants of our programs are anything to go by, Karen, wouldn't you say?
And it's really great to continue to follow their journey once they've been through some of our programs, because we've got the virtual and social media type connections where we're seeing what they're undertaking and also to connecting with their families. And it's really great to see that, these kids aren't stopping. They're continuing to venture forward and make their mark.
Yeah, so cool. We have no questions as yet. So it looks like last chance, anyone, if you do have any questions or comments. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us. Like I say, it's really great to have you here, and maybe we see you next time.